Have you ever set a boundary with your Filipino parent and it just didn't work? You said, Ma, I cannot come this weekend, and she made you still feel guilty. Or you told your dad, Dad, I can't send money right now, and he reminded you of everything he sacrificed. You walk away asking, Why aren't my boundaries working? Am I just a bad anak? Here's the truth, it's not that you're weak, it's that boundaries in Filipino families need something deeper. In this video, we'll talk about why your boundaries don't stick, how inner child healing and Sikolohiyang Pilipino explain the struggle, and how to practice healthy boundaries the Filipino way with lambing, not just the Western script of saying no. Magandang umaga, hapon, or gabi po sa inyong lahat. I'm Dr. Nette. I'm a Filipino-American clinical psychologist, and I've dedicated my career to help Filipinos worldwide heal generational trauma through inner child healing, ancestral wisdom, and kapwa psychology. I was born and raised in the Philippines, and I immigrated to the US as a young adult and later pursued graduate studies here in San Francisco. So now, as a first-gen immigrant, I bring both personal and professional insight into the healing journey. Having grown also with anxiety and trauma and later diagnosed with ADHD, I deeply understand what it means to, face mental health challenges without support or resources. And all of this lived experiences inspired me to create the Brown Psych channel here on YouTube, the podcast also that we will be coming up with, and also Instagram, where we currently, as of this recording, September 2025, we have 102,000 followers. These are spaces that I'm really hoping that will make healing accessible for us Filipinos while honoring our culture, our heritage, and our community. So why don't your boundaries work? Because boundaries are not just words. They're about the energy behind those words. And if your inner child still believes, I must obey to be loved, I can't say no or I'll be rejected, then even when you set a boundary, guilt will leak through. Your parent will sense your hesitation, and then the cycle continues. For example, you tell your mom, Ma, I can't come home this weekend. Your voice is shaky, you over explain, and pasensya na po, sorry ma, like you apologize 5 times. Deep down, your inner child is terrified of disappointing her. Your mom hears the hesitation and presses harder, but anak, we never see you anymore. And suddenly you give in. And this is why boundaries are not just communication skills, they are healing work. Inner child healing helps you reparent yourself, and it allows you to say with confidence, my needs matter, and I can say no and still be loved. And again, if you also decolonize what kapwa really means, kapwa is not just, about other people. It's also including ourselves in that circle of compassion. So it's really important to also put that kapwa psychology in this kind of work when you're healing as a Filipino. So when you set a boundary, do you feel guilty before, during, or after? That is not a failure. That is your inner child calling for healing. Comment yes if this resonates with you, and to help you with this, I also created a free guide called Navigating Boundaries, a Filipino's inner child's companion to healing guilt. It's filled with Filipino-rooted scripts for saying no with compassion. The link is in the description. The second reason your boundaries aren't working is because many of us are using a Western script in Filipino context. So here in the States, right, like in the West, boundaries are often so blunt and so confrontative, right? Like so confrontational. No means no, and that's final. And they will even say, like, this is my boundary and you have to respect it, or something like that. It's about that clear separation between individuals. But in our Filipino culture, which is like collectivists, right? Our sense of self is really relational, not individual. Boundaries in our families need something different. They need lambing, they need that warmth. Lambing is our cultural softness. It's the warmth, gentleness, relational care. It's the smile or the soft tone of voice, the affection words that says, I love you, but I also need this. So for instance, in the Western style, you'll say, stop calling me at work, ma. But in the Filipino style with lambing, it's like, Ma, I want to give you my full attention. After 6 o'clock p.m., I'll be home. Can I call you back? Same boundary, but the other one sounds like rejection, and then the other one sounds like connection. And again, like I said, if you reframe that boundary instead of a wall as a bridge, right? Then the lambing will come out because you're basically just saying to the other person what you really need and what your limitations are. I know that sometimes you might feel like, but shouldn't I just be direct? Directness isn't wrong, but in Filipino families, bluntness can sound like disrespect. Healthy Filipino boundaries balance honesty with lambing, and that's how we protect our needs while honoring kapwa. So, why does this feel complicated? Because Sikolohiyang Filipino or Filipino psychology shows us that our relationships are really intricated or like are woven into our very identity. So let's look at these three powerful thinkers. For Enriquez, he says that there is the ibang tao versus hindi ibang tao, meaning ibang tao is like other people, and hindi ibang tao means not one of us. So Virgilio Enriquez is the father of Filipino psychology, and he said that we see people as either ibang tao outsider or hindi ibang tao, not one of us. With ibang tao, we keep the distance and politeness. Pero pag hindi ka na ibang tao like family, they enter our loob, which is our inner self. And this is why saying no to family feels so painful, because you're not just saying no to another person, you're actually saying no to someone inside your identity, someone who is a big part of you. So, in American culture naman, saying, sorry, I can't make it to the dinner is neutral. In Filipino family, declining dinner with your parents can feel like I'm rejecting my family and I'm rejecting myself. So it feels a little bit heavier. Okay, now I'm going to go into the next one. There's this priest, his name is Father Jaime Bulatao. He akined the Filipino self to the fried egg, right? He described the Filipino self as the pritong itlog, the yolk is you, and then the egg white is your relational self. But, it spreads out. It blends with the others in the pan. So unlike the Western concept of the hard-boiled egg where the self is contained or our self is porous, we absorb our parents' moods, struggles, and expectations as if they're our own. So for instance, your mom is stressed about money, you feel stressed too, even if your finances are fine. Or your dad is disappointed, you feel shame even if you didn't cause it. And so your inner child learned, if they're not okay, I can't be okay. That's why boundaries feel so hard and feels like an abandonment. All right, there's this another, he's actually an anthropologist. He's a Filipino anthropologist. His name is Prospero Covar. And he akined the Filipino self naman to the banga or clay jar. And, he said that there is the labas, the outside. This is how we look, how we perform for others. And then you have the inside, which is the loob, which represents our true feelings, our needs. And then you have the lalim, which is the depth, our deeper roots, ancestry, spirituality, and history. And many of us are trained to live only in the labas, the outside. This is where we smile, we obey, say yes, even when our loob is screaming too. So for instance, you keep attending family parties to avoid conflict, which is the labas, even when you are drained inside in the loob, right? Without boundaries, your lalim or the depth of who you really are gets ignored. So what does this mean for boundaries? So again, like I said, boundaries are the bridge between your loob and your parents' loob. They allow you to stay connected while you're staying whole. And without them, you collapse into obedience or withdraw completely, or you just cut them off, right? Or sometimes you become so passive aggressive. It's because you're not really sharing them what your loob is, like what's really true for you, what's really going on with you. And so eventually, even if you want to please them, even if you don't want to feel rejected, you begin to suffer inside. And so your inner child suffers too. So if you can kind of like put it all together, boundaries really help us live with integrity, honoring both yourself and your family, honoring your kapwa, And again, that's also including you. We are included in the kapwa. So I'm gonna go now into this porous boundaries, right? This is the anak na palaging nag-oo, which means this is the kid that always says yes. Because in this porous boundaries, it when we mean like no, we continue to say yes, even when it hurts, even when we're so depleted. And you absorb your parents' needs at the expense of your own. For instance, sending money home even when you're in debt, or letting your parents dictate your career, your love life, dropping everything even when you're sick, and your inner child learn that they don't matter because love means just obedience. Okay, I get it. I know that you might be saying, if I say no naman, won't they think that I don't love them? But the thing is, love isn't measured by constant yes, 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 right? You can't just like be a yes person. Saying no doesn't erase your love. It makes your yeses more meaningful because they really come from your truth, from your authentic self and not the fear. All right, so let's go now to rigid boundaries. Rigid boundaries means cutting off completely, ignoring calls, avoiding gatherings. This is like really what they say in kind of like the Western boundaries, like putting the walls, right? Like building the walls so high that even love can't get through. This often happens when porous boundaries are violated for years and years, and the inner child reaches her limit and shuts down. And again, important disclaimer, rigid boundaries are also necessary in case of like really the deepest traumas or the violence, sexual violence, or ongoing emotional abuse. There is no excuse for violence, and many who go no contact endured years of reaching that point. Going no contact, I mean, is not betrayal, it is survival. Our ancestors resisted abuse too, but they fought to protect their dignity, their loob. Choosing safety is not dishonor, it's really ancestral courage. This is what we're currently doing right now, right? Like our kababayans in Manila. I am recording this on September 23, 2025, and just about 2 days ago, right? In EDSA in Manila, they all gathered because they're saying they're putting their rigid boundaries. Tama na. The abuse is too much. It's enough. And so, as you can see, rigid boundaries is also so powerful and really needed for our own mental wellness. So, another objection that I also hear when I, teach this to my clients, when we teach this in the Helam Collective, which is our membership here in the Brown Psych, but won't my family be angry? Totoo naman. Sometimes nagagalit talaga sila. And they might, right? But they might not. But your inner child also needs to know that this temporary conflict is safer than lifelong harm. So here we now go into the healthy boundary. Again, healthy boundaries are not walls. They're actually really bridges, like fences with gates that can open and close, depending on love, trust, and safety. So for instance, this can sound like, Ma, I can't talk right now, but can I call you tomorrow? I'm going to call you tomorrow kasi medyo busy, right? Or Dad, I can't send more money this month, but here's what I can give right now. Or I love you, but this decision for me is like right now. I really just need to think about it. This is respect too, but respeto that includes yourself. And I get it. You might be saying, but boundaries are selfish because our family in the Filipino family, they always come first. Totoo. Even with my own child, like as I raise her, like our family, like this is like one of the core values that I teach her, that our family comes first, but not at the expense of self erasure. Because I know that she's human, she has her limits too. Because boundaries, it really preserves your ability to love without resentment. And like I said, before in a previous video, a burnt out daughter or a burnt out son cannot love fully. A whole daughter or a whole son can. So healing through lambing and kapwa is what I want to kind of teach next, because what makes Filipino boundaries work, it's through this. It's not about copying Western bluntness. It's about combining honesty with lambing, our cultural language of warmth. So for instance, you can say like, instead of saying, stop commenting on my body or whatever, you can say, Tita, when you say that medyo masakit, can you encourage me in other ways? Alam mo na love kita, right? Or something like that. So same boundary, but framed with lambing. It's easier for your parent to hear. And I was also going to say that one of the common things that I also hear from at least like from my Filipino American clients, right? Or like from the Helam Collective members when we have this discussion is like sometimes, like their parent would like this really happened in real life. Someone there was saying that, my mom just keeps on coming to my house. I just like gave birth to this newborn baby. And I told her, Ma, you can't just like keep coming here because I just gave birth. I also need to rest. We also need our space and our boundary, la, 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 right? And what do you think was the expression of the mom? Of course, she was hurt. And this mom stopped talking to her for a while until she learned this healthy boundary, until she learned the lambing. And this is now how the conversation looked like when she learned the healthy boundary. Pwede naman kasing sabihin na, Ma, I know that you want to visit us all the time. We really miss you. And I know that you miss your apo, your newborn, but we're kind of tired right now. Would it be okay if I set a time tomorrow, like kunyari, Sunday tomorrow, right? Like, would it be okay if we set a time, like maybe 6 p.m., we can visit tomorrow? And then that way I can also attend to you. I can attend to you, I can pay attention, and we can actually really hang out because by that time I'll be fully rested. So I'll see you tomorrow. Diba? It doesn't have to be that full confrontational, super Western boundary, right? Hindi uubra yun sa mga Filipino parents natin. That is not gonna fly. So this is how we set our boundaries that honor both kapwa and loob. We don't abandon our relationships. We make them healthier. And this is why boundaries without inner child healing, it's hard. It's not going to work. Your inner child needs to feel safe enough to express love and limits at the same time. So, like I said earlier, we have a membership called the Helam Collective. This is exactly what we practice. Boundaries, Filipino style, rooted in kapwa, practiced with lambing. And together we heal the guilt, share scripts, and remind each other that you don't have to heal alone. And then in there too, we also have like weekly events that will remind us of our inner child work. We get to know each other. We have the Kapwa Connect. We also connect to our cultural heritage. We have the creative writing workshops that we use to kind of connect also to like our cultural heritage. And then we also have didactic lessons that I do, and then followed by Q&As. And then we also have like on-demand live videos that you can just like turn on and it will be available to you. And these are the 12 steps to inner child healing for Filipinos. So we have all kinds of things and a lot more. And by the way, if you also wanted to just get started, right, like with your Filipino inner child healing journey, we have this thing called Pagbabalik Loob. It's an ebook. This is the 5 basic sacred steps to begin your Filipino inner child healing. The link is in the description. So here's the truth. If your boundaries aren't working, it's not because you're failing. It's because boundaries are deeper than words. They live in your inner child and they need to be rooted in kapwa, especially if you are going to do that to your first-gen Filipino parent. And they need to be spoken with lambing. And boundaries don't make you a bad anak. Hindi ka masamang anak, right? You're not a bad daughter, son. They make you a buong anak, which means a whole daughter, a whole son who can love without losing herself. I know how hard this is because I lived it. Growing up, I was always taught to be humble, to be accommodating, to be quiet and obedient. And so for years, I taught boundaries meant rebellion. I really had porous boundaries and no one modeled it for me. And my mental health suffered because I was so accommodating to everybody, even though I was extending myself. Some people took advantage, they kept on asking, and then I just kept on giving and giving. So through inner child healing, I've learned this. Boundaries expressed with love and lambing are not betrayal, they're bridges. In our next video, what is Filipino inner child healing and why it matters and healing trauma, we'll go deeper into the very heart of this work. We will explore what Filipino inner child healing looks like, why it's different from Western theories and Western therapy, and why it's the foundation for healing family trauma. Don't miss it. Again, this is Dr. Nette signing out, reminding you that our healing is our resistance. I'll see you in the next one.